Vincent Keller was already 40 minutes behind schedule when the airport called again. "I'm sorry," he muttered into the Bluetooth earpiece as he maneuvered his old Honda Civic through traffic, a juice box flying from the back seat and bouncing off the dashboard. "I had to pick up my kid from school. I'm on my way now." "Just deliver the suitcase, Vincent," the woman on the phone snapped. "It's the last one on the list." He hung up before she could launch into another rant, reaching back blindly to hand the juice box to his 5-year-old son, Elias. "Here you go, buddy." "Thanks, Daddy," Elias chirped, swinging his legs in the booster seat. "Can we still get pancakes after this?" Vincent sighed. "If we're quick." That was a lie. They wouldn't have time. He still had to swing by his second job at Cal's auto shop to grab his check, then figure out dinner. Rent was due next week, and the last thing he needed was another deduction for being late. He pulled up to the address. The airport gave him some high-rise building downtown that looked like it belonged in a movie. Glass walls, gold handles, a doorman in a suit. "This can't be right," Vincent mumbled, double-checking the slip. "Penthouse." Elias pressed his nose to the window. "Is this a hotel?" "No, I don't know what it is." He parked illegally, unbuckled Elias, and grabbed the sleek black suitcase from the trunk. The wheels were quiet on the marble floor of the lobby as the doorman eyed him warily. "I'm just delivering lost luggage," Vincent said, lifting the tag. "Airport sent me." The man nodded and pressed a button. "Penthouse is expecting it. Elevators to your left." Vincent stared at the elevator. "Penthouse, huh?" He didn't know who lived at the top of a building like this, but he was pretty sure they didn't shop at thrift stores or eat dollar pizza slices. Still, he stepped in, Elias clinging to his jeans. Vincent looked rough, faded t-shirt, work boots, and a baseball cap covering his unshaven jaw. This was not the kind of place he belonged. The elevator opened directly into a massive living room. Glass walls overlooked the city skyline. A white grand piano sat in the corner. A woman stood near the window, her back to them, talking on the phone. "I want the Tokyo numbers by tonight. No excuses." Her voice was sharp, commanding. She turned as they stepped in. Vincent blinked. She was stunning. Tall, sleek, wearing a fitted black dress and heels that probably cost more than his car. Her dark hair was twisted up, revealing a graceful neck and sharp cheekbones. But it was her eyes, hazel, focused, that met his and froze him in place. She ended the call. "You're from the airport?" "Yeah," Vincent said, clearing his throat. Sorry, the delay, my kid's school. Anyway, here's your suitcase." She glanced at Elias, who waved cheerfully. "Hi," her expression softened. "Hi there." She walked over and took the suitcase, her manicured fingers brushing his. "Thank you." "No problem," she tilted her head. "You carried this all the way up here." "Yeah, well, elevator helped." There was a pause. Her eyes lingered on him just a moment too long. "You're not with the usual courier service." "I used to be, got cut back to part-time. I do what I can." She gave a slight nod. "What's your name?" "Vincent. Vincent Keller." "I'm Zariah Knox." He waited for her to say more, but she didn't, just her name, like it should mean something. And maybe it should. The penthouse, the view, the power in her voice. She wasn't just someone who had money, she was someone who made it. "Well, luggage delivered," he said, backing toward the elevator. "Come on, Elias." "Wait," Zariah said suddenly. "Would you like something to drink? Water?" "Juice for your son," Vincent hesitated. "I don't want to bother you." "It's no bother," Elias tugged his sleeve. "I want juice." Vincent gave in. "Just a minute." "Then we'll go." She smiled and stepped into a sleek kitchen, opening a stainless steel fridge that was bigger than their whole bathroom. She handed Elias a juice box and poured Vincent a glass of cold water. "Thanks," he said. "Do you usually bring your son on deliveries?" "Only when I have no choice." He rubbed the back of his neck. "His mom left a few years ago. It's just us." Zariah nodded slowly. "That must be hard." "Some days," he admitted. "But he keeps me grounded." She looked at Elias, who was happily sipping juice and admiring the piano. "He's adorable," Vincent smiled, "and loud." Zariah laughed, an actual laugh, not polite, not forced. It surprised him. "You don't look like you spend your days delivering luggage," she said, walking to the window. "Yeah, well, life happens." "Do you always do it in steel toe boots?" Vincent looked down. "These are my nice boots," she grinned. "Fair enough." There was a silence. comfortable weirdly. "I should go," he said finally. "I've got stuff." Zariah walked him to the elevator. "Thank you again for taking the time." "Anytime." As the elevator doors slid shut, he caught one last glimpse of her still standing there watching them. The next day he got a call. "This is Zariah Knox," she said, her voice cool and clear. "I wanted to ask, would you be interested in some extra work?" Vincent nearly dropped his phone. "Like, what kind of work?" "I need someone I can trust to handle pickups, errands, odd jobs. My assistant is out for 2 weeks." "I liked how you handled yourself yesterday." He stared at the cracked tile in his kitchen. "I mean, yeah, sure, I could use the work." She didn't say more, just gave him a time and address. When he showed up, she had a list of tasks: pick up dry cleaning, deliver documents, drive a car to a repair shop. Simple stuff. But the pay, double his usual rate, and every time he saw her, she smiled a little more. By the fourth job, she handed him an envelope. He opened it. Inside was a gift card to a high-end restaurant. "What's this?" he asked. "You mentioned pancakes," she said. "Take your son somewhere nice." He looked at her, really looked. She wasn't just beautiful, she was kind, and maybe this wasn't just about errands anymore. Maybe she wasn't just another client. Maybe something was starting. Vincent leaned against the hood of a sleek black town car, double-checking the clipboard Zariah had handed him earlier that morning. The list wasn't long: a few documents to drop off, a vintage watch to pick up from a jeweler, and a reservation to confirm at a place called Le Mistral. He didn't know what Le Mistral was, but judging by the way the parking valet had looked at his boots, it wasn't the kind of place that served burgers in baskets. Zariah had sent him in her car this time. The leather interior still held a trace of her perfume, something subtle and expensive he couldn't name. He didn't ask questions. He just followed the list. As he pulled up to the last stop, a tall building with tinted windows and a rooftop terrace, he glanced at the time. Elias would be finishing his art class soon. His neighbor, Teresa from downstairs, had offered to watch him for a few hours, and even though Vincent didn't like relying on people, he'd accepted. Teresa had raised 4 kids of her own. If anyone knew how to keep Elias occupied with crayons and cartoons, it was her. He walked through the lobby and into the elevator, carrying the envelope Zariah had told him not to open. The man who met him at the top floor wore a suit so sharply cut it looked like it might slice the air. "This is for Miss Knox," Vincent said, handing him the envelope. The man didn't even blink. "You're not her usual courier." Vincent turned, already walking back to the elevator. "Nope, I'm not." Back in the car, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Yeah, I just got word the watch wasn't ready." Zariah's voice came through, low and direct. "They need another hour." Vincent adjusted the rearview mirror. "I can wait." "Actually," she said after a pause, "meet me instead. The gallery on 5th, I'll text the address." He didn't ask why. Just drove. When he arrived, she was already inside, standing before a massive canvas that looked like a storm had been bottled in brushstrokes. Her coat was draped over her arm, silk blouse tucked into navy slacks, heels clicking softly on the polished floor. She turned as he approached, her gaze sweeping over his wind-blown hair and the scuff on his jacket sleeve. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "You asked. I show up." She studied him for a moment. "You always that straightforward." "Only when I'm not trying to impress anyone." That made her smile barely. Then she gestured to the painting. "What do you think?" Vincent looked at it. "Looks like someone was mad at the weather." Zariah let out a soft breath, almost a laugh. "It's called inheritance." I don't see it." "That's because you haven't been taught how to see it," she said, glancing at him sideways. "But maybe that's a good thing." He shifted on his feet. "Why bring me here?" "I'm trying to decide if I want to buy it," she said, then added, "and I wanted a second opinion. From a guy who fixes brake pads and delivers envelopes. From someone who doesn't try to sell me anything." Vincent folded his arms. "You get sold to a lot. Every day." He turned toward the painting again. "Then don't buy it." "What makes you say that?" "Because you're not looking at it like you want to own it. You're looking at it like you want it to mean something." "Paintings don't change who you are." Zariah stared at him. "You're very sure of things you don't know." "I know people. I know when someone's trying to fill a silence." She didn't respond right away. Then, quietly, she said, "This belonged to my father. He sold it before I turned 18. I found it again last week." Vincent glanced at her, sensing the shift. "And now you're thinking if you buy it back, you get a piece of him." She nodded once. "You don't need a painting for that," he said. "You already carry him in the way you talk, the way you stand. Probably even in the way you sign checks." Zariah looked away, the edge in her expression softening. "He would have hired someone like you, someone like me, someone who didn't care how much a pair of shoes cost." He shrugged. "I care. That's why I only own one pair." That earned a real laugh this time. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, then turned back to the painting. "I'm not buying it," she said. "Good," Vincent replied. "Looks like a thundercloud had a nervous breakdown." She laughed again, then checked her watch. "Come on, I'll buy you lunch," he hesitated. "I've got to pick up my kid, bring him. I'd like to meet him properly." Vincent blinked. "You sure?" "Very." 15 minutes later, Elias was in the back seat of Zariah's car, eyes wide as saucers as he pressed his face to the tinted window. "This is the coolest car in the world," he announced. Zariah turned in her seat. "You think so? It has a screen in the back." Vincent watched her from the corner of his eye as she smiled at Elias, her voice gentler now. "Do you like spaghetti?" "Yes." "Then I know just the place." They drove to a quiet corner of the city where a restaurant sat tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore. Inside, the lighting was soft and golden, and Elias was handed a menu printed on thick cream cardstock. Zariah ordered for them all, speaking to the waiter like she'd eaten there a dozen times. When the food came, Elias dug in immediately, sauce on his chin, a piece of bread in each hand. Zariah didn't pull away. She leaned in, helping him cut the spaghetti, laughing when he tried to twirl too much at once. Vincent watched them, something tightening in his chest. After lunch, they stepped out into the early evening sun. Zariah crouched beside Elias, adjusting the zipper on his jacket. "You've got good taste in juice," she said. "I like the grape one best." "I'll remember that." Vincent looked down at her, not the CEO now, not the woman who wore heels and made calls in 2 languages, just Zariah kneeling on the sidewalk, talking to his son like she'd known him for years. She stood and met Vincent's gaze. "You free tomorrow?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Depends what you need." "I was thinking more dinner, no errands, just you and me." He didn't answer right away, then, "Yeah, I'm free." Zariah's smile was small but certain. "Good. I'll pick the place." Vincent nodded, heart thudding faster than it should. Something was shifting, and this time he wasn't sure he wanted it to stop. The restaurant Zariah chose was on a rooftop, surrounded by ivy-covered trellises and soft amber lighting that shimmered across the tablecloths like candlelight on water. Vincent arrived 10 minutes early, his nerves wound tight enough to snap. He wore the only collared shirt. He owned a navy button-up that still smelled faintly of engine oil, no matter how many times he washed it. The hostess gave him a once-over but said nothing, leading him to a table near the edge where the skyline spilled out behind glass panels. He checked his watch, then the view, then his watch again. The silverware gleamed like it had never been touched by human hands, and the wine glasses looked fragile enough to shatter if he breathed wrong. When Zariah walked in, the air around her seemed to still. Her dress was deep plum, the fabric soft and fluid, catching the breeze just enough to remind him that she moved through the world differently, like she didn't need to push to make space for herself. Her hair was down, falling in smooth waves, and she wore small gold earrings that caught the light each time she turned her head. "You're early," she said as she approached. "I didn't want to keep you waiting." She sat across from him, sliding her clutch under the table. "You clean up well." "I tried," he said. "Didn't want to get kicked out." Zariah smiled as the waiter arrived, filling their glasses with water and handing them menus that felt more like art portfolios than lists of food. Vincent stared at the options, trying to figure out what half of them were. "Should I order for you?" she asked. "Only if that's not insulting." "Would it be? Depends on how hungry I am." She tilted her head. "And are you?" "Haven't eaten since breakfast." Zariah looked at the waiter. "We'll start with the lamb tartare and the saffron risotto." "And the house red." Vincent folded his menu. "You always eat like this." "Only when I want to remember something." He raised an eyebrow. "And what are you trying to remember?" That I don't have to do everything alone. The words caught him off guard. He leaned back slightly, studying her. You don't seem like the kind of person who needs help. I'm not, she said, but I've been wrong before. Their wine arrived. She swirled hers gently. Vincent didn't touch his. You don't drink. Not when I've got responsibilities in the morning. Zariah took a sip. That's very responsible. You sound surprised. I'm not used to men who think beyond the next hour. Then you've been meeting the wrong men. She looked at him over the rim of her glass. That's what I'm starting to think. The food arrived. Vincent picked at the tartare, unsure of its texture but unwilling to admit it. Zariah noticed. You're allowed to hate it. He pushed the plate aside. It tastes like regret. She laughed quietly, then reached for the risotto. This one's better. I promise. They ate in a rhythm that felt oddly natural. Between bites, their conversation drifted, never circling back, always moving forward. Did you always want to run your own company? Vincent asked. No, I wanted to be an architect. I used to sketch buildings in the margins of my school books. Then my father died and I inherited his company. Everything changed. He nodded slowly. It always does. What about you? What did you want to be? A firefighter, he said, until I realized I hated heights. Then a chef, but I couldn't afford culinary school. Then a mechanic by necessity. You're good with your hands, though. He hesitated, then grinned. Are you flirting with me? I'm observing. Feels like flirting, Zariah shrugged. Maybe I'm doing both. He leaned forward slightly. You do realize I'm not from your world, right? I don't belong in places like this. She reached across the table, brushing her fingers against his lightly. Then maybe it's time I stepped outside mine. A beat passed, too. Then Vincent said, what happens when this ends? Does it have to? It might. You go back to your meetings and I go back to chasing down overtime hours. Her eyes didn't waver. Maybe we both deserve more than going back. He wanted to respond, but the waiter returned to clear their plates, offering dessert menus. Vincent waved his off. I should probably head out. Elias has a school project due tomorrow. Zariah stood with him, gathering her clutch. I'll walk you to the elevator. They moved through the restaurant side by side, not touching, but close enough that the space between them felt charged. At the glass elevator, she pressed the button, then turned to him. I don't usually invite people into my life. I don't usually let people into mine. Then I guess we're both doing something new. The bell dinged and the elevator doors opened. Vincent stepped in, then turned to face her. I'll call you. Zariah met his eyes. No. Come see me. He nodded once, then disappeared behind the closing doors. The next morning, he found a note tucked into the visor of his Civic. It wasn't typed. It wasn't formal. It was written in her handwriting, slanted and precise. You left your lighter in my car. I'm keeping it hostage until you come get it. Z, he smiled, folding the note and sliding it into his glove compartment. Daddy, Elias said from the back seat, holding up a crayon drawing. Can we give this to the nice lady? Vincent looked at it, a portrait of 3 stick figures, one of them with long hair and a purple dress. Yeah, he said. I think she'd like that. Something was changing, and this time he wasn't afraid to let it. The invitation came on thick cream paper, hand-delivered by a man in a gray suit who called Vincent sir, and waited until he opened it before nodding and stepping away. Elias was sitting at the kitchen counter, covered in glitter and glue from his school project, when Vincent read it out loud. You are cordially invited to the Knox Foundation Gala, he said slowly, brows raising. Black tie, Friday night, 7 o'clock. Elias blinked. What's a gala? It's like a party, Vincent said, folding the card, with very fancy people. Are you going? Vincent hesitated. I don't know. Elias wiped his hands on a paper towel. If the nice lady wants you there, you should go. She probably invites a lot of people, but she gave you your own card. Vincent looked at the envelope again, his name written in Zariah's careful handwriting. That night, he stood in front of the apartment mirror, adjusting the knot of a borrowed tie. Cal from the auto shop had loaned him the suit, freshly dry-cleaned and a size too snug in the shoulders, but good enough. Teresa from downstairs had agreed to stay with Elias, promising popcorn and a movie marathon, and Elias had waved him off with a grin. The venue was a converted train station, all vaulted ceilings and cascading chandeliers. The moment Vincent stepped through the doors, A man offered him champagne and another asked for his coat. He declined both, scanning the room until he saw her. Zariah stood beneath a sweep of golden light, speaking to a small group near the stage. Her gown was a pale silver that shimmered with her every breath, her hair drawn back to reveal a pair of delicate diamond earrings. She caught sight of him, and for a moment, her expression shifted, something quiet passing through her eyes before she excused herself and walked toward him. "You came," she said, voice softer than the music spilling from the string quartet nearby. "You invited me. You clean up well." He laughed under his breath. "This is Cal's suit. He wears it to his niece's baptisms." "Well, Cal has impeccable taste." He stepped closer. "You sure I belong here? I'm sure I'd rather stand next to you than anyone else in this room." Zariah reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his like it was the most natural thing in the world. People noticed. Heads turned, but she didn't let go. "I want you to meet someone," she said, guiding him through the crowd. They stopped near a tall man with a salt and pepper beard and a tailored navy suit. "Vincent, this is Graham Langford. He used to be my father's closest advisor." "Graham, this is Vincent Keller." Graham looked Vincent over, then offered a hand. "So you're the one who's had her smiling at her phone all week." Zariah gave Graham a pointed look. "Don't be inappropriate." Graham grinned. "I'm old." "I'm allowed." As the older man wandered off, Vincent turned to Zariah. "He seems like trouble. He's harmless, and he makes sure I don't lose perspective. You need someone for that." "I need someone for a lot of things," she said, her voice dipping lower. "But I'm starting to think I've found the right person." Before he could reply, a voice called her name from the stage. A man in a tuxedo motioned for her to join the podium. She squeezed Vincent's hand once before stepping away. As she gave her speech about the Foundation's work rebuilding community housing, expanding education programs, funding shelters, Vincent watched her with a strange ache blooming in his chest. This woman, who moved through marble halls and boardrooms like she belonged to another world entirely, had reached out to him. Not out of pity, not out of convenience, but because somewhere between errands and late meals and shared laughter, something real had taken root. When she returned to him, he didn't wait. "I've been thinking," he said, voice low as they drifted toward the quieter terrace. "Dangerous." He stopped walking. "You're going to change my life." She tilted her head. "Is that a warning?" "It's a promise." Zariah stepped in close enough he could see the specks of gold in her eyes. "Then let me change it properly." He blinked. "What does that mean?" "I want to invest in your future, Vincent." His shoulders tensed. "Zariah, not as a charity. Not as a favor. I've seen you patch together 3 different jobs to give Elias a good life. I've seen you show up for people who wouldn't show up for you, and I've seen what you're capable of when someone believes in you. I don't need a handout. I'm not offering one. I'm offering a partnership." He studied her face, searching for some trace of condescension, but there was none, only sincerity. "What kind of partnership?" "You've talked about opening a garage of your own," she said. "A real one, where you don't have to beg for hours or borrow space or tools." "I want to help you build that." He shook his head. "Zariah, I can't take your money. You'd be taking an opportunity, one you've earned. I don't want you to feel like you have to fix my life." "I don't," she said, "but I want to be part of it." He was quiet for a moment. "Then what do you get out of this?" She reached up, her hand brushing his jaw. "I get you." He swallowed, the words catching in his throat. "I never planned for this," he said. "I was just trying to get through the day." "So was I," she said. "Then you walked into my penthouse with a 5-year-old in a suitcase, and suddenly everything felt different." He leaned in, brushing his lips against hers, tentative at first until she pulled him closer. The city stretched out behind them, glittering and endless, but the only thing he could see was her. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "Come home with me. I have to pick up Elias. Then bring him." Later that night, Elias sat cross-legged in the middle of Zariah's living room, building a spaceship out of magnetic tiles while Vincent watched from the couch, one arm draped across the backrest. Zariah returned from the kitchen with 3 cups of hot cocoa balanced on a tray. "Extra marshmallows for you," she told Elias. He beamed. "You remembered." Vincent took his cup, fingers brushing hers. "You really want us here?" "I've never wanted anything more." He looked around the view, the warmth, the laughter echoing off the high ceilings, and felt, for the first time in years, completely at peace. Zariah sat beside him, her head on his shoulder, while Elias narrated his spaceship's mission. "Where's it going?" Vincent asked. "To a new planet," Elias said. "One where everyone gets to be happy." Vincent met Zariah's eyes. "Sounds perfect," he said, and for the first time in a long time he believed it. Zariah adjusted the hem of her linen blouse as she stepped into the newly renovated garage, the sharp scent of fresh paint still clinging to the air. The floor gleamed beneath her heels, the polished concrete smooth and pristine. The space was double the size of the old auto shop Vincent had once worked in, with high ceilings, energy-efficient lighting, and sleek red and black tool cabinets lining the walls. Vincent stood at the far end of the space, wiping his hands with a towel, a grease-streaked grin spreading across his face when he noticed her. "You're early," he said, walking toward her. "I wasn't expecting you until after the inspection." "I moved my meeting," Zariah said, taking in the space. "I didn't want to miss this." Vincent glanced at the clock. "The city guy signed off an hour ago. We're officially open." Zariah's eyes lit up as she took his hand. "You did it." "We did it," he corrected. "You helped make this happen." She shook her head. "I gave you a foundation. You built everything else." He leaned down, pressing a kiss to her cheek. "Still, I want you to see something." He led her through a side door into a smaller room tucked behind the main work floor. The walls were painted a soft navy, and a large glass window overlooked the main garage. Against one wall stood a desk already cluttered with papers, a pair of small model cars, and a framed drawing Elias's spaceship sketch, now mounted and preserved behind glass. Zariah traced the edge of the frame with a finger. "You kept it." "It's the first thing I hung in here," Vincent said. "This is the office. Yours too, if you ever want to hide out from the boardroom." Her brow lifted. "You're offering me a desk. I'm offering you a seat in my world, just like you gave me one in yours." Zariah turned to face him, every line of her expression warm. "I didn't expect this to turn into a life." "Neither did I," Vincent murmured, "but I'm glad it did." They stayed like that for a moment, the hum of the city beyond the garage a distant whisper. A knock interrupted them as the front door swung open and Elias burst in, his backpack bouncing against his side. "Dad," he called out, racing across the floor. "Can I show Miss Zariah my toolbox?" Zariah crouched, arms open as Elias crashed into her. "You have your own toolbox. It's red like the big ones," he said proudly. "It even has my name on it." Zariah glanced up at Vincent, who gave a subtle nod. "I guess I'll have to see it then," she said. Elias grabbed her hand and tugged her toward the far wall. "Come on." "I put stickers on it too." As they walked away, Vincent watched them, his chest tightening with something deeper than gratitude, something fuller than contentment. Later that evening, after the grand opening wrapped and the last visitor filtered out, Vincent locked the garage and met Zariah by the car. Elias was already asleep in the back seat, his head slumped against a travel pillow. "You sure you're up for this?" Vincent asked as he opened the passenger door for her. Zariah gave him a look. "You mean a weekend road trip with a 5-year-old and a man who refuses to use GPS? Old-school navigation builds character. Getting lost builds arguments," he grinned. "You still said yes." She slid into the seat. "I always will." They drove through the quiet streets, the city glowing behind them like a fading constellation. Vincent reached across the console and took her hand, their fingers entwining easily. "I've been thinking," he said. "Dangerous," he laughed. "I want to marry you." Zariah turned her head slowly. "That's not a joke, is it?" "No," he said simply. "I don't have a ring yet. I wanted to ask you before I bought something that doesn't belong on your finger. You don't have to buy me anything." "I want to. I want to do it right, but I'm not asking you because of the garage or Elias or anything else. I'm asking because I love you, because you're the best thing that's ever happened to me." She was quiet for a breath, then another. Then she said yes. Vincent blinked. "Really?" "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I love you too. I didn't see it coming, but now I can't see my life without you." They stopped at a red light, and he kissed her quick, tender, and full of everything he didn't have words for. A few weeks later, they stood in a sun-drenched garden surrounded by friends, employees, and people from both their worlds. Vincent wore a gray tailored suit his own this time, and Zariah's dress floated like a whisper of silk around her legs. Elias stood between them, holding the rings on a velvet pillow and grinning like he'd won the lottery. There were no grand speeches, no lavish spectacle. Just vows spoken with quiet conviction, witnessed by the people who mattered. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Vincent didn't wait. He pulled Zariah close, kissed her like she was oxygen, and whispered something only she could hear. She laughed, kissed him back, and didn't let go. Afterward, they danced beneath strings of lights while Elias twirled between their legs. The night was filled with laughter, the clink of glasses, and music that hummed like a heartbeat under the stars. Later that year, they bought a house just outside the city, a place with a big backyard, a porch swing, and a garage Vincent could tinker in on weekends. Zariah still ran her company, only now from a home office with a view of Elias's fort in the yard. Vincent's garage became one of the most respected in the county, known not just for repairs, but for hiring apprentices who needed second chances the way he once had on Tuesday nights. They had pancake dinners. On Sundays, they watched movies on the couch, Elias sandwiched between them, wrapped in a blanket. And every night before they fell asleep, Vincent would turn to Zariah, brush her hair back from her face, and say the same thing. "You changed everything." And Zariah always would answer, "So did you." Their life wasn't perfect, but it was real, built on laughter, second chances, and the kind of love that didn't just arrive, it stayed forever.